Hitchhiker's Guide to 42.
Hello hitchhikers, you're listening to ahk42.com, a hitchhiker's guide to 42. I'm your host Leah Harrison and welcome to the show. Today's guest is Simon Clarke. He wrote a book called This Will Blow Your Socks Off. Hello hitchhikers, and I am now here with Simon Clarke, or as he likes to call himself, Simon the Amazing Clarke. Hi Simon, how are you?
Hi Leah, thanks for inviting me on the show. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay, and it's my pleasure. So explain. We're going to be talking about your book, and
Yes.
the book is called "This Will Blow Your Socks Off."
Absolutely.
So we're going to delve into a little bit about it. Obviously, people can read more detail about the subjects that we'll be talking about tonight by buying your book and having a read of it, because there's so much more detail to talk about. But we've only got this amount of time for this show.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like to ask you is basically explain your engineering background.
Yes, thank you. I joined the Royal Air Force as an aircraft engineer when I was 17. So they obviously go very deep into how aircraft fly, and because the particular trade I was, how the internals of an aircraft actually work as well, flying controls, hydraulics, air conditioning, the whole kit and caboodle. And then since leaving the Air Force, I've worked mainly in the aircraft design industry as a weights engineer. So again, I'm really delving deep into the actual design of aircraft, down to the nitty-gritty sort of bits and pieces.
Right. Technical.
Yes. Generally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what got you started on your material for the book?
There's several little things really. I read Timothy Good's book, Above Top Secret.
Okay.
That was interesting. I think I got that for a present at some point.
Wow.
I also read Nick Cook's book, The Hunt for Point Zero, and that was absolutely fascinating. And that got me thinking back to when I was younger, when I went to France, well, Brittany, with my parents back in the 70s. And we saw the standing stones of Karnak, and they were just amazing.
Right, okay. So you also speak about in your book, though, about the Baalbek, is it, in Lebanon?
Yeah, but
But
Baalbek absolutely fascinates me.
yeah, 1,200 ton stones of Baalbek, no less.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't stones. This is a singular block.
Ah,
It's very hard to imagine how heavy that really is. But I did some calculations the other day, and if you reassembled Stonehenge completely with all the stones that are missing, you know how it would have looked when it had finished being built. It's about the same weight.
oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Right, so did you ever get to go to Lebanon at all?
No, I've not been there yet. It's on me. It's on my to-do list.
Yeah, on your bucket list, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yes, there's quite a few places. Yeah, half the world.
Yeah, because I think you wrote it in your book actually about that you'd like to go and do travelling around the world to all these different ancient places.
Yeah.
You can understand ancient man creating the Ring of Stones on the island of Lewis in Scotland, you said, but not Stonehenge. Why is that?
Very simply, human beings have a limit to the capacity that they can lift and carry and move. If you've got sort of 10 guys and you've got a large stone that weighs about a ton, you can probably move it over a flattish surface. But the stones of Stonehenge, the lintels at the top themselves, they weigh about 5 tons.
Right.
The vertical, and they were transported about, well, it's from sort of mid Wales, so it's 120, 150 miles, which is incredible. But the vertical stones, they weigh over 30 tons each.
Wow.
And they were brought from about 20 miles away. So, if all you've got is people and ropes, it becomes basically impossible from an engineering perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Well, also, I'm just going through as much book as we can. I'm just telling the audience because it's so
Yeah,
interesting and detailed. I just wanted to get the book to inspire people to have a read of it because it's so full of so much information. So I'm going to keep going through these little topics
yeah, it's
about
absolutely
it
fine. Yeah.
of your chapters. You talk about ley lines and Alfred Watkins. Who is he?
He was an English guy, and in the 1920s he loved walking around the countryside of the UK. And one of the things he noticed was that both ancient monuments and modern monuments like churches, um, as he plotted them on his map, he noticed straight lines. So he thought he'd well, if these three things are in a straight line, if I keep walking straight, it must be the easiest route to get to the next place.
Right.
Um, Anyway, he came across swamps and rivers and all sorts of things. So as you delve deeper, you realise that across the length and breadth of the UK, um, things were in lines, but the lines met at points.
Oh.
And you've got places like Avebury, the which is a village in a circle,
Mm.
and obviously Stonehenge. These are points that have these lines sort of coming towards them. So if you look on hilltops and valleys, you can see lines of churches and monuments and bits and pieces,
Yeah.
and they were named as ley lines.
Oh,
And
okay.
these lines actually travel all the way around the world,
Wow.
which come on to later. I mean, perhaps another thing I ought to explain about the book, it's my journey. So sometimes things can be a little bit oddly placed, but I was really writing the book as I was learning things, and as you're trying to answer one question, like I was researching Alfred Watkins,
Mm.
something else comes up, the World Energy Grid, and it's like, what's that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it did this, like, as you said, there are so many different aspects to this book, and as you pointed out, the what we're trying to do is awaken people's interests to
Yes.
what's actually out there.
Piri Reis. Is it Piri Reis? Could you correct me if not?
Piri Reis,
Reis. Ah.
yeah, Piri Reis was a Turkish admiral in the 1500s, and he produced a map that, when you look at it today, okay, it's sort of, you can see Africa and you can see sort of South America and a lot of other places.
Mm.
But this map, he said he produced from a load of old source maps. Now, when he says old, I don't know how old they were. They could have been 100 years old, maybe a couple of 100 years old. But Piri Reis produced this map. It was in the early part of the 16th century. It was, I don't know, 1515 or something like that.
Right.
But that was only about 18 years after Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well,
Oh,
that's what the Portuguese call it. He discovered America.
right.
But that's another topic that we'll cut into later.
Yes.
But there are some other really old source maps of the world that show, places like Antarctica.
Mm.
Well, and again, these are 15th, 16th century maps.
Mm.
Well, we didn't discover Antarctica till the early 1900s.
Right. Yes, of course. You also dive into DNA topics, Simon, such as
Yes.
chimpanzees has more diversity in them than in the human race.
Yeah, it is really strange. If you go to any zoo in the world and you just pick out at random 6 chimpanzees and do a DNA analysis, there'd be more genetic diversity in those 6 than the entire human race.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
an interesting one, which is probably a subtopic for my next book, for the follow-on to this, is cheetahs have a lot lower genetic diversity than us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
That'll have to be another top. That'll have to be another talk another day.
Oh, it will, it will. And I've got so
Yeah.
much to talk with you about. We'll definitely have you back on, and so we can
Oh,
delve deeper into
that'll be
subjects.
superb. Thank you, Leah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'd enjoy that. With your engineer mind, then, let's talk
Yes.
about Stonehenge, the rolling stones with the friction and the force that you were speaking about in the book.
Yeah. Like I say in the book, it goes into far more detail as to the hows and whys and whats.
Mm.
But put simply, if you go to Stonehenge, outside the back of the visitor centre, they've got a fiberglass mock-up of one of these 30-ton blocks on top of a couple of large logs and some bits and pieces and some ropes.
Right.
Well, when archaeologists look at it, they say, well, you need to move a 30-ton stone. Well, you don't, because the two huge logs that it sits on, they must weigh a ton and a half each.
Mm.
Then there's all the other straps and the other pieces of wood that you're using. Then if you've got a few hundred people pulling it, well, there's the length of those ropes. Now, modern day climbing ropes, half a dozen of those would probably be strong enough, but this is 4,000 years ago, 4,500 years ago.
Yeah.
The ropes they had, again, would have added an extra couple of tons on. So, this is something a lot of people don't realise, is how much effort it takes to pull it. But then if you start going uphill and through woods and things, your frictional force increase to the point where, you need thousands of people. And again, going back to earlier comments, it's just not possible, effectively.
No, but it boggles the mind anyway, I think,
Absolutely.
just to think of it being done that way.
Yeah,
The same as the pyramids, but we'll talk about them later.
absolutely.
So we're there. Cairo, the power grid.
Cairo and the power grid. When Albert Watkins was working on his what are now described as ley lines, these lines throughout the UK, and again, jump onto Google, put in ley lines, and you see maps of the UK covered in these things.
Wow.
Well, you end up with points, like I said, of Stonehenge before, where you get a few lines will meet, but then you get these major connection areas, and these are actually very equally spaced around the Earth. Cairo is one of those.
Oh.
Middle of the Bermuda Triangle is another one. Easter Island. And there's a place on the Horn of Africa that's just in the middle of the Sahara. But if you actually go there, there's an ancient city.
No way. So they're like an interconnected thing again.
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. There's so much to... I'll be like Googling later.
Good.
We're going to take a little break. Be back in a bit.
And Shibalba, the hero twins, Quetzalcoatl and the Toltecs make it so. Curvature of time, not a straight line. Quetzalcoatl and Toltecs making it so.
That was The Coming of the Mayor by Nick Turner. So you also mentioned about no aircraft that flies today can lift the block stones of, say, the granite, I guess. We were on about, I think the section was in the Egyptian part.
Yeah, I mean, really, whether you're talking about, it's building the pyramids, the small blocks on the pyramids are 5 tons. A Chinook helicopter can lift 10 tons. But they're the small blocks.
Wow.
These, just to give you an idea of the size of this block at Baalbek, there's actually several of them there. An Airbus A380, which is the biggest passenger aircraft in the world at the moment, has a maximum takeoff weight of 560 tons. That's the aircraft, that's the fuel, that's the passengers, that's the baggage, that's the cargo, and everything else on board. That's half the weight of the Baalbek megaliths.
Whoa.
Yeah. So you can't lift these things with anything. Nothing that we have today.
No.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see people try again with like cranes and stuff.
I'd love to build a 30-ton block and have it on a bit of sloping ground, on even ground.
Yeah.
Throw a little bit of a wood down to the other side, and have a competition where whoever can move it without using any mechanical means of anything sort of modern day equipment.
Yeah.
Primitive
tools and such. Yeah.
That would be so cool.
It would, wouldn't it? I'd watch that actually. I'd definitely pay to see that.
But, we could do again someone to sponsor that. But there we go.
Yeah. That's on the cards. Let's put that in the card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So why did most of the people in Africa live in mud huts while the Egyptian the Egyptians, 1,000 miles away, were able to build pyramids?
I mean, this is the confusing thing. And again, if you look at the little model setup that they've got down at Stonehenge, you got this block, and then they've got these little round huts. Well, if someone within your group had the technology to be able to build something like Stonehenge, why would you live in a 10-foot diameter hut?
Yeah.
And why very close to the pyramids? You got from up in Cairo, and then you got down by the Aswan Dam, and you get down as far as the bottom end of the Nile, where all the burial chambers are. You've got Africans living not too far away, and they had no technology at all. Why wasn't this passed around? That's something that beggars belief, really.
Yeah, I mean, surely people, even if they didn't, use boats or anything, surely they walked around now and then, went for a little wander to actually walk into where the pyramids were. Surely they could have met each other and passed down information like they supposedly used to. Yeah.
Unless the people who built most of the larger items in Cairo, like the pyramids and the Sphinx. The Sphinx is actually a lot older than the pyramids.
Right.
Unless the people built those, was a long time before humans moved around too much in Africa. Right. I don't know.
Oh, it's beggars belief. American Indians originated from Mongolia, you say. Cherokee DNA is closer to the Egyptians?
Yeah. There's two schools of thought there. Mm-hmm. Archaeologists will basically say used to say that during the last ice ages, people came across the Bering Straits from what's now Russia into what is now Alaska, and would have eventually followed the ice flows and the bits of land down towards the Americas. But actually, it turns out that they first started crossing there about 50,000 years ago, whereas the Mongolian Indians are closer to 14,000 years ago. But the Cherokee Indian DNA is weird. As it says, when they sort of DNA'd all these tribes, try and see which tribes sort of came from other tribes or whatever.
Yeah. And
this one was just completely different to anything else. The reasons for that are in the book.
Yes, good. So, what is your we're going to move on.
There's several areas in South America that are absolutely stunningly interesting. But one in particular is near Lake Titicaca. Right. Lake Titicaca is an inland lake. I think it's something like 150 miles long. It's the highest navigable lake in the world.
Huge.
What's really weird at such a high altitude is in the lake they actually have seahorses.
Oh, what?
In a freshwater lake at 11,000 feet. But they also have, and I only spotted this one recently, they also have toads in there that breathe underwater.
Oh, okay.
Through this place is so weird. And then nearby you've got these blocks and these buildings. The technology used to carve these blocks is far more advanced than we have today. Wow. And I was watching another one on Egypt on these brown blocks that have these score marks on. And they're talking to a stone company in the UK. Now, they melt steel and pour in chips of diamond into this. So that the steel holds a diamond and the diamond does the cutting of the marble. Okay. And they're looking at how this is cut. He said, yeah, so it would look exactly the same. If you did one, he says, no. So well, you've just told us the technique you use is the same as that. Oh, yeah. He says, but their cut rate is twice as fast as mine.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they're using modern day steels with diamond, and the blocks they're pulling out from Egypt are cut faster than that. There's I don't think I cover that too much in the book.
No.
Or for my next book, which is going to be about the possible ways that stones could have been cut and stones could have been moved.
Oh, fantastic. I'll look forward to that one.
Yeah.
I mean, the stones and the way they were cut, I mean, so many people argue over how they were done. But like you say, no, I haven't seen anybody prove a method that is anything like how detailed and how precise
Absolutely.
laser-like cuttings,
Yeah.
but not even a laser is doing it, are they? Lasers nowadays can't even do it.
The worst cut. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that really gets to me is when you hear a comment like, mainstream scholars don't believe there's a problem. That's fine. You can prove it. You can give me one way that they could have done it.
Nazca lines, we're there now. Nazca lines. What's your theory then?
There's several things that go off at Nazca. You got these animal pictures on the floor, and these are hundreds of feet across and hundreds of feet long. But there's also these great long lines. Some of these are parallel and look a bit like runways and taxiways, but others of them, I think it's trapezoid, if you get the word out.
Okay.
If you have something parallel like a runway and you're stood at one end, because you're looking towards a distance, the perspective pulls in the two lines at the end. Well, if you take a picture of an aircraft landing at the runway and you look at these lines in Nazca, they look exactly the same.
Crazy.
But these are thousands of years old, so you know that just needs investigating a lot further as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that people are trying to decode them and say that they were just lines for people to go and walk on, say, their paths,
Absolutely, yeah.
passages, to different destinations.
I think one of the problems is that if archaeologists can't come up with an answer, they'll look at the area and they'll sort of say, well, the only people we found that ever lived here 1,000 years ago. Well, they must have made them.
Yeah.
In my mind, because that's the early. They seem to sort of limit themselves. And there's a case, and I think I mentioned it in the book. There's the case of an archaeologist lady in the 1970s, I think it was. As I mentioned before, you got humans travelled to the Americas 50,000 years ago. She found evidence for this, but because she published it and it wasn't mainstream knowledge at the time, she's been a florist ever since.
Oh, it's just such a shame.
Absolutely. Instead of looking at it and going, okay, we think your theory is a bit way out there, but we'll look at your evidence and we'll hold it open for now. But no, she was just completely shunned. So that says to anyone, if the only evidence you've got is this, that must be the answer.
Yeah.
And there's so many places, and especially in South America, where this is so true that well, the Incas must have built it. No, the Incas didn't have a clue.
Yeah, I mean, they would be telling us, wouldn't they?
Before they got there, yeah.
Yeah, they'd be surely telling us how it happened. It passes down, doesn't it? Usually, like with the Cherokees.
Absolutely.
They pass it
and
down
the story
from the
they
elders.
passed down is it was here when we got here.
Yeah,
Which
brilliant.
again is absolutely fascinating.
It is as fascinating actually as the underwater city in the Gulf of Bombay. Now, I've not actually looked into this one.
No, is that Bombay or Cambay? I think it's actually Cambay.
Is it? Sorry.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
My notes.
If you go back 8,000 years, if you go back 16,000 years, wherever you're in the UK, are you down in Lincolnshire?
Yes, I am.
You're down in Lincolnshire. Well, if you were to go east in Lincolnshire now, within, a couple of hours in the car, you're going to end up in the sea, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, 16,000 years ago, you'd have kept going over the land, and you'd keep going to Norway and Denmark and away that way.
Yeah.
And I'm up in the northwest, and if I went west, obviously know where I am. I'm literally about half a mile away from the sea, actually.
Right.
But 16,000 years ago, I'd have driven to the Isle of Man, which is just a mountain range. I'd have driven past it, and I'd have gone to Ireland. I'd go to the other side of what we know as Ireland before I got to the sea.
Right.
If civilizations built up that sort of time ago, which is a lot of people's theory, and I totally agree with the theory, then you're going to find underwater structures at quite deep depths. Now, in the Gulf of Cambay, which is on the west coast of India, just before it meets Pakistan, which is why this place hasn't been explored, at 130 feet down, they found the top of a city.
Wow.
Well, if it's 130 feet down the top of the city, that puts us back to at least 6,000 to 7,000 years ago when the top of the city actually disappeared under the sea. But this city is 5 miles long, 2 miles wide.
Okay.
Well, that means you've got farming, you've got major building works going off. And also, if this is the top of a hill, well, the bottom of the hill must be further back. So, it's 9,000 years plus. But at the moment, they can't get to it to examine it because of political issues between the countries.
Right, okay, what a shame. Again,
Mm,
everywhere we
yeah,
always get stopped, don't we, from investigating into our
we
ancient
do. We do.
history.
Well, we're not investigating the truth. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, where did we come from? We're so more advanced than we were in the, say, 1900s when they first started digging up treasures and such. It's a shame that nobody can put some differences aside just to find out what lies beneath.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Too many people want to clamp down on it, yeah?
yeah. I mean, Atlantis, you're saying, was not a city but a place. Where do you think Atlantis lies?
I there's descriptions of Atlantis, but you sort of get the feeling that the Atlanteans were the people that lived 10 to 15,000 years ago. It was a race of people, and some of them did end up in the Mediterranean. And as the sea levels rose in the Mediterranean, they started running out of land, and and some of those ended up in Crete. And then there's some painted murals that sort of show that where they come from. There's great flooding and all sorts. But one of the interesting things in Crete is you go to certain areas and you can see track lines down the side of the hill where horse and carts have gone for years and years and years, centuries up and down, and they've worn grooves in the rock.
Right.
Well, if you go down to the sea, obviously the sea's full of pebbles and whatever, you can't see anything. But if you go underwater, the tracks continue.
Oh, right.
Which means that I don't think I mentioned that in the book, but there's so many things in the Mediterranean. I mean, did you know that there used to be pygmy hippos and pygmy elephants on Malta and Crete and a few of the other islands?
Oh, gosh. I hate to be moving on so quickly, but we've got to get
That's fine.
these topics in. Aliens. You go to aliens in the book, and
Yes.
PMs, presidents, and the like have not been allowed to access to this info. Please speak about that.
Yeah, one of my favourite guys on this, he's a guy called Dr. Stephen Greer. He was an American ER doctor who came across information over a period of years, and eventually he tried to push this information out. Eventually, someone actually invited him to speak to the president, the American president. He said, "Hey, I'm just a country doctor," but the information he got so much information on the aliens that. They end up briefing presidents, and I know he actually briefed Obama when he came into power.
Wow!
So I assume he's done the same recently with President Trump.
Yeah, he did Disclosure Project, didn't he? So people could have a look for him on YouTube.
I only discovered that a couple of years ago, and it's such a shame because this came out in 2001, when you've got two figures really stand out for me. One, he's the ex-deputy head of the Federal Aviation Authority, which is the organisation that controls all the aircraft in America. So if you're deputy head of an organisation like that, you take facts as being solid. And he testified to a huge UFO, and I think I could sort of go into the details of that in the book. But the other big one that I absolutely love is the ex-Canadian Minister of Defence.
Oh, Paul Collier.
Yes, yeah. When you got someone of his governmental rank who says, "I know of aliens, I know of extraterrestrial spacecraft. We've seen them on the radars. I've seen them, clear one side of the radar to another side of the radar. In a matter of seconds. Far faster than anything that we have."
Yeah.
He talks about things like that. Then you sit up and listen. But for the listeners, Disclosure Project 2001. Like you said, it's on YouTube. They are quite long, but listen to them. If you're unsure whether you think aliens exist or not, go and listen to them because they're just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, you've got people from the military and all sorts of different...
Yes. The Black Project people are the most interesting. People who've worked for companies like the Skunk Works. Which is interesting.
It sure is. So you mentioned about alien technology in the SR-71 Blackbird in your novel, right? we must have you back on the show to talk about that. Okay, so
Oops.
we'll
I
save
think
that.
we'll just there. We'll
Yeah.
move on to the next question.
Yeah, we'll leave that one there because I'm going to save that one, so that's a goodie. Orion's Belt. What's your theory on it?
The three main pyramids in Cairo. This what they call the I think it's Tomb of Khufu or Khufu's pyramid. But that's only because someone found his name etched inside somewhere. There's two main pyramids, and there's a slightly smaller one that's slightly off centre, and it was discovered 10, 20 years ago that they're actually in the same alignment to Orion's Belt. Now, does that mean that the people who lived on Earth before, some of them went there because of things that are happening on the Earth? Is that where some of them come from? We just don't know.
No, I mean, they've even got this technology now where they can map the stars by putting in whatever year they want, and they can see from the North Pole. They can see all around the world. They can pinpoint where the moon would have been, where the stars constellations would have been, and what have you. Just type in the year. It could be future, or it can be past. Okay, and they put that in, and they said even with like the Earth's wobble and what have you, it's still only like 2 millimeters off or something like that.
Yes, yeah. I mean the build. And it's funny. If you measure Khufu's pyramid, the centre is about quarter of an inch out of centre, the very top of it, about quarter of an inch off. The American Standards building is 3/4 of an inch off.
Yeah.
But the pyramid's nearly 500 feet tall. Now, if you had a hang glider, you could jump off the top and you have a lovely flight down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this one here, but did you know there's actually a similar set of circles in Yorkshire that's an Orion's Belt as well, similar to an Orion's Belt?
Oh no, I didn't. Where
And
is
you
that?
need to go and have a look at that.
Yeah, where is that? I'll just Google it if you can't remember.
Yeah, it's. Oh no, I do.
Oh, you do? Good.
It's up near Catterick and Leeming. If you put Orion's Belt, North Yorkshire, you and obviously the listeners will be able to find that.
Oh, okay, interesting. That's my.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be busy later.
You absolutely are. I do apologise for that.
Oh yeah, you're terrible. That's it. You right? Okay. We're going to take a little break. More shows are available on ahk42.com. All available for free. Head to ahk42.com for more. Nick Turner, and you can check out all the rest of his music on nickturner.com. Tesla and free energy. Why do you think we aren't using Tesla free energy devices?
It all comes back to oil. You know, we're seeing a big change in cars these days. I mean, I absolutely love the thought of having an electric car, having solar panels on my roof, and I produce my own electricity to run my own car.
Yeah.
But no one's going to profit out of that.
Yeah.
Petrol cars require us to buy oil off the oil producers, the people who turn it from oil into petrol and what have you. Well, back in, I think it was the early 1900s, Tesla was working on these free energy devices, and there is energy around us that can be extracted. But the biggest problem is the big money makers can't make anything out of it. Well, if they can't make anything out of it, they aren't going to promote it.
You say if people were to take up archaeology, you're telling them to possibly leave the ancient Egyptians, Greeks and Romans alone to somebody else. And what would you suggest that they would study if they were taking up archaeology?
So many people, will come out off these archaeology courses, and like I say, they'll just sort of dash over to Egypt and try and get digs over there. What I'd basically say to them is go to somewhere like Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is it's a huge site. They've only uncovered part of it so far. Göbekli Tepe is actually the Turkish for Pot-Bellied Hill.
Uh-huh.
And there's a huge monument up there with all sorts of wonderful carvings and things.
Oh, okay.
It was built, it was used for about 1,000 years, and 12,500 years ago, they purposefully covered it back over again.
Yeah.
Why? Find things that are 12,000 years old. Find things that are older. Try and do the underwater archaeology. If you go down between sort of 500 feet deep and 300 feet deep, around the continental shelves around the world, there'll be so much down there, but no one's looking there. So that's where I'd suggest, if someone wants to do archaeology, someone wants to be at the leading edge of something, and you don't really want to just redo what other people have done, go and find our real history, which is really what this book and obviously this chat's all about. That's where my passion is.
Yes. Your additional items worth investigating, you've stated these in the end of your book.
Yes.
Would you tell us a little bit more about them as I go through them?
Yeah.
Okay. The ropes of antiquity.
What were they made of? How did they make them? I know in the sort of Middle Ages they had these huge rope rooms, but they now have sailing ships that go around the world to bring materials to us. But what did people in Egypt make ropes out of? There's just what would people in Egypt make ropes out of, or people in the UK 4, 5, 6,000 years ago? I have no idea. So that's worth looking into.
Okay. And the mountains of fire.
Rocks that hold a lot of quartz crystals. If there's an earthquake, the mountains can move. Now, if you've ever had a clicky firelighter or cooker lighter, that's actually a crystal in there that, as you squeeze the trigger, it bends, and as it bends, it gives off electricity, gives off a spark. So if you've got a mountain that's involved in an earthquake, it's said, I've come across a couple of reports, but nothing major. It's said that you end up with sort of huge sparks flying out of these mountains.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's as far as I've got on that one. These are topics for another book for someone else to have a look at with whatever. Yeah.
Okay, cool. 1,012 hertz.
That's 1,012 hertz is supposedly a frequency which, if you apply it to solid objects, will cause them to lose weight, to float. Apparently,
Interesting.
These sort of topics at the end of the book here really are a start of a 10.
Yeah.
It's take the put in 112 or 1,012 hertz into Google and look it up and see where it takes you.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a lovely little menu of research topics to start from. You're right.
Yeah.
Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki, as far as I can remember, it's the name. If you translate it from Sumerian into English, it's those from heaven to earth came. I could be wrong, but I think that's what
right.
it is.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki are, if you read Zachariah Sitchin's works, which we'll cover over hopefully over another session. They're an alien species that came to Earth and helped to create us.
Right, and then we move on to very much related to Anunnaki, Nibiru.
Oh, Nibiru, yeah. Well, the Nibiru is the planet that they live on, which is another planet of our solar system. But I've come across a couple of things. One, it's a planet on its own that has a highly elongated orbit of about 30,000 years. But another report I've come across says that it's our star isn't a single star; it's actually a binary star, and we have a small red dwarf. Well, it could be that the Nibiru orbits that red dwarf, which still keeps its heat. Well, it's nowhere near us, but again, this all requires sort of further study.
Yeah, I mean, ancient theorists believe that Nibiru could also be called Planet X, or is it the 12th planet in our solar system?
Yeah.
Okay.
So many theories out there, and there's a lot of people doing some really good research. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's a bit of fandom going around since 2012, wasn't there, of Nibiru?
Yeah,
it's hard not to have missed it really on the interweb.
Yeah.
Okay. Indian city, 32,000 to 9,000 year old.
No, I know these are numbers that what we're taught at school, or what we're taught about us in the UK. At the start of building Stonehenge, we went from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, and
Right.
obviously from the Bronze Age we then to move to the Iron Age.
Right.
But that's at 4,500 years ago.
Yeah.
We in theory prior to that we just you're chipping away at flints to make little things that you can cut with, and you can make little spear tips and that sort of thing. So to find cities buried in India that could possibly date back to 32,000 years,
Yeah.
it just absolutely it just blows the brain cells.
It
Blows your
does.
socks off.
It does
Yeah.
blow your socks off, indeed, Simon.
And another one on the Indian cities. There's one, and I can't remember what the name of this one was. But as they found it, it wasn't abandoned. There's bodies all over the city from about 10, 15, 20,000 years ago. All the bodies face the same direction, and all the city and all of the bodies are highly radioactive. It's as if a nuclear bomb's gone off.
What? That is
How?
crazy.
How? Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they're all laying in different directions in a certain way as well.
Well, yeah, they're all facing as if away from the blast.
Right. Okay.
People
Interesting.
are just flat. If a nuclear bomb goes off, there's a single shockwave, or there's a double shockwave that comes out, which forms a singular shockwave, and that's enough of a blast that if it hits you, it just basically dismantle your organs inside your body. It kill you on your feet, and it just throw you flat.
Yeah.
So if that happened, and then dust settled, and then time moved on,
True.
all these skeletons would all face the same way.
Yeah.
And being irradiated, I think, and don't quote me on this one, but I think if you got that high level of radiation, then it would actually protect the bones from decaying, because you've already killed off all the bacteria.
Okay.
So anyway, that's book 3 then.
Yeah. We're getting through. I tell you what, there is so much stuff to talk about. It's
know.
like this book is the start of many. It's really good,
Yeah, I mean, this book isn't the be all and end all of everything.
No.
This book it's designed to open people's minds.
Yeah, and that it has.
To get, these. I can't remember if. I know in the back of the book, I know I mentioned a couple of YouTube videos to go and watch. People's minds will be opened, and away they go. Come back to me with any questions if you have any questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Meteor landed in America 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, these one of the reasons 12,500 years ago keeps cropping up in various archaeological places around the world, and it's also the same timing for the youngest Dryas, which started coming out of an ice age about 15,000 years ago. 12,500 years ago, it suddenly started up again. Everything iced up very quickly, and then 10,000 years ago we had a sudden melt. So there's questions out there as to are these two times related,
Right.
and due to some of the evidence that we've got, this was actually meteors or even large chunks off a comet.
Well, it's a very strange coincidence if it is totally different situations going on 10,000 years ago around the world.
Yes.
5,000-year-old mass graves of Florida and Texas.
I know this is another topic I didn't really touch in on that book. I don't think so. Giants, there's reports from all around the world of giants, and we're talking people of not just like 7 and 8 feet tall, but 16 feet tall or taller.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's still remnants of that gene, still, isn't there?
There is. It's like if you go to it's in South America. I don't think it's in Mexico, but there's a tribe of people there who they're the long distance runners. And these guys don't do marathon runs. They're for the teenagers to do, or the youngsters. These guys do. If they have a big race, it's a 100-mile race.
Oh dear.
Their genetics are so different. But these mass graves, and there's not just like 10 and 20 in a mass grave. There's thousands. I've only seen a few reports of these, and it's the reason why it's in the end of the book as to, how did they end up there? What happened?
Yeah.
Was there a huge calamity? Don't know.
Exactly.
Don't know.
Additional items worth investigating indeed. And
Yes.
then the last one on this list is the anti-gravity and the frog.
Yeah, sound waves have been proven to lift water molecules, and they've even had a speaker, and above that there's a plastic tube, and there's a frog. They have a frog in this tube, and it's floating on sound waves.
Brilliant.
Not a clue.
Yeah,
I'm
brilliant.
not a sound expert.
No, and I love that sort of subject too myself. So, yeah, that's another one that people really should look into. So there's a lot of explanations that could be made, isn't there, about such things possibly as moving stones.
Yes, which goes back to the 1012 hertz. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. But yeah.
Okay, so everybody who would like to contact you, right, can do how? How can they do that?
Right, I've got a Facebook page, which is Simon Amazing Clarke. That's Clarke with an E. And I've also got a Gmail account at the same address.
Okay.
So that'll be simonamazingclarke@gmail.com.
Cool. And I've put the links on the website as well on ahk42.com under the guest page for yourself. Also, you've got a book signing coming up, haven't you, Simon?
This weekend, anyone that's in the Northwest, I'm doing the Bolton Comic Con, which I think's at the Holiday Inn, but if they have a look on Google, they can find out. I shall have a table there. I'm really there to present my sci-fi novels, because I write sci-fi books as well. But I will have copies of This Will Blow Your Socks Off. Come and talk to me if you like the talk. You want to buy one. I'm quite happy to sign books for anyone that's interested.
Cool. So, what? Briefly then, before we call it a night tonight.
Yeah.
What other sort of books titles have you got, Simon?
Oh, such a diverse range. My first book, which is why I am Mr. Amazing, is a self-help book.
Cool.
And if you'd like, I can come on and talk about that sometime.
Yeah.
How tips and hints I picked up over the years of how you can change your life, and how I've changed my life, and other people have changed theirs as well. So rather than being book 900, if you search Simon Clarke, if you search Simon Amazing Clarke, there's only one of me.
Yeah.
All my books are on Amazon. There's books or there's ebooks. So they're all there.
Yeah.
I have one on. We have 3 cats, my daughter and I.
Yeah.
So I've got the adventures of 3 black cats,
Right.
Frankie, Lola and Bella.
Yeah.
I've got children's books. But yeah, if you go on Amazon,
Yeah.
Simon
Plenty.
Amazing Clarke, and they're all on there.
Yeah, there's plenty to look through. Fantastic. I really thank you so much, Simon Clarke, for having some time with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Lee. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
You're talking to me about my favourite topic.
Yay, brilliant. And I can't wait to have you back on. We'll have a little discussion and we'll figure out where to go from first. And then we'll have, I think, longer discussions about certain theories that you've got, Simon, and evidence and facts that you've got.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Now you take care and I'll speak to you soon, Simon.
You take care. Bye.
Cheers, bye. And that's the end of today's show. But on Friday, we'll be talking about medical marijuana. See you soon.